sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed ground. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now. It's been a dramatic start to the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. 4 races have seen 4 different pole sitters and 4 different winners. The chaos and the confusion is likely to continue as for the first time this season, the series heads abroad. 12 months ago, a trip to Australia saw absolute craziness before Sage Karam emerged through the smoke, climbing from 29th into HyperX victory lane. What does the Thunder Down Under hold in store for us in Chapter 5 of the campaign? This is the SimRace247 Grand Prix of Phillip Island presented by Gomez Sim Industries. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, alongside is DJ Clark, and we're rolling on in a week of road racing action. So let's dive straight into our Next Level Racing pre-race show. Yesterday, the IndyCar Series headed to Silverstone. Today, we head to Phillip Island, Australia. This was a crazy race last year, DJ. I'm not sure we're in for that same level of craziness, but if it is, boy, our voices are going to be tired at the end of this 46-lap affair.
Yeah, indeed they are, Arjuna. This is a very, very technical circuit and one that produces some, frankly, interesting racing. It is a motorcycle circuit, first and foremost, and then so that explains a little bit of why everything is so different around here. The other big change that drivers are going to have to take into consideration is this is, as you can see on your screen, right by the ocean, and that produces some pretty fierce winds and some crosswinds that come across the track that can really throw these cars for a loop if drivers aren't careful.
There's plenty of elevation changes here, but in a very interesting way. Let's grab a look at your Next Level Racing schedule as we're working past the first Triple Crown race of the season. Jim Herrick is now a Retro Series winner, coming out on top in a thriller in the Pocono Mountains, but we make the long trip around the world 2 weeks on for the second road course race of the year. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll head to Brands Hatch. Well, we are expecting that to be a rather interesting race. The first time that we go to that particular facility, then over to Nashville, another first for the series before our second of the Triple Crown events. And to close off the first half of the season, we go to the Hungaroring. What a campaign that we've got in store for us here this season. Let's have a look at your Next Level Racing drivers' standings. Mike Rasmas, 2 points clear of David Sirwa, and I say this every time we talk about the Canadian. Last year when he joined the series, we thought that he was likely to be someone that excelled on the road courses, but David Sirwa has all of his pole positions on the ovals now. He has become a talented driver across all the disciplines that you have to conquer in this Lotus 79, and I didn't think he'd be a title challenger, but he's showing just 4 races in, he's one to watch.
Yeah, he certainly is, and the rest of that Raven Lemoy Motorsports team really and truly definitely earning their position. No, look for no further than his teammate there, Alex Goyon, down in 7th place. That is becoming a very, very tough team to be able to come up against. I also think we also have to take into consideration guys like Michael O'Brien, Matt Taylor, MadWorks. After a rough start to the season, they're coming on very strong as well. It's very tight at the top, Arjuna.
And you see the 3 of the MadWorks Motorsports cars inside of the top 8, and as you'd expect when we grab a look at the HyperX team standings, they are at the front of the field, but after the 1, 2, and 3 to start off the campaign, Graphics LC Motorsports are hanging on. Raven Lavoie in the mix as well. RSR by Butt Kicker, one that we should expect to have some good pace here today, especially from Marius Valiokas, who's looking to bounce back after his mistake midway through the race at Watkins Glen to try and get into HyperX victory lane. Here's a look at the butt kicker rookie standings, where the butt kicker RSR David Rodriguez car sits at the top with Cristobal Valenzuela, Rodrigo Munoz, Jim Herrick and Hugo Gallas through the top 5. Jim Herrick splitting up the Backfire Motorsports trio by virtue of his Retro Series debut win in our first of the Triple Crown races. It's a strong rookie class, and again, I'm going to go back to it. I think Valiokas is the one to watch today. We saw how rapid he was at Watkins Glen. Can he convert at Phillip Island?
Well, and remember at Watkins Glen, he looked near untouchable until a pit lane speeding penalty kind of rattled his composure a little bit, and that led to a spin later on. So I think if he is able to continue to show that good pace here again, not make a mistake like that down pit lane, it could keep him in the zone, and he could be a real contender out here today.
Let's talk about your series details, brought to you by Gomez Sim Industries. It's the 6th year of the Lionheart Retro Series, where we take this Lotus 79 designed to challenge the world's best in Formula One around the world to ovals, to street courses, and to road courses as well. It's a custom fixed setup. Drivers are on an equal playing field, 2 hands, 2 feet. So that's the only tools they've got to work with. Cash and prizes just over $7,000. Your series champion wins a Next Level Racing GT Track cockpit, as well as a Moser Racing direct drive wheelbase and Formula Rin. The first of the Triple Crown races is already passed. 2 more still to come. Auto Club to close off the season. Of course, we're expecting to see a new champion because Aaron Morgan is on a part-time schedule. We expected him to run most of the road course races this season, but after competing in the Lionheart IndyCar Series and this Grand Prix of Silverstone yesterday, juggling too many different things, we won't see him on course today. We will see one of those Avatar Order Racing teams cars, though. We should see Mark Cohn back in your field here today. So that's the series. Let's talk about what we've got in store for you today. A third trip with the Lotus 79 to the land down under as we grab a look at these Moser Racing event details. It's been a staple on the schedule since Season 3, but Season 3 was utter domination from Ryan Otis. No one else even led a lap. It was a lights to flag victory for that champion that year. But 12 months ago, like we mentioned earlier, utter chaos. DJ will speak more to that in a couple of moments' time. Just 4 drivers had led laps here in series history. Will that change here today for those who watched the IndyCar Series at the end of last year as well? It's a very difficult race to pass in, and that's why you look at that margin of victory, 22 seconds. That was the closest, and that was through the carnage that we saw last year. DJ, talk to us about what happened in 2021.
Well, it was just a coming together all the way on the first couple of laps, going down through Dewan and into the Southern Loop. Drivers all flying off. I can tell you I had a perfect view of everything coming together, and I can tell you I had an even better view as Sage Karam got a fantastic pass done on me coming down through the Southern Loop as well. But one of the things that makes this track so difficult is the sweeping nature of it, especially with the cooler tires here. Very early on, as you try to get onto the power, you can just spin up those rear tires. That's exactly what happened, and drivers lost it coming down into Honda. It led to a big pile-up, and we had a very jumbled around order.
Let's grab a look at the track. You talked about it being right on the coast. There you can see the sea. Just over 4 miles, just under 3 miles, over 4 kilometers in length. We've got 12 corners, and for once, I'm not going to complain too much about the corners here today. The start-finish line is a long run down into Turn 1, a sweeping right-hand bend that leads you into the Southern Loop. It's so tricky to get that braking zone right. And I will tell you what as well, I've not competed in this track in the Lotus 79, but I've competed at top-level endurance races here. I might have taken out most of the field coming through Turn 1 on the start, because it's a very frenetic start here, DJ. You're jockeying for position. You're vying to work your way to the inside of Turn number 2.
Yeah, indeed you are. You want to be down on that inside line. It's a little bit of a crown on the corner there into the Southern Loop, so if you get too far outside, it can really throw you off, but it's crucial to be able to get a good blast out of the Southern Loop because it leads you into that long hairpin right there. That is Honda. That is one of the best, if not the best, overtaking opportunity on the track. Look for some late braking maneuvers going down into there. There you can see it on your screen. It's a relatively flat corner, so no real banking to help you through there, but even if you get the pass done, it leads right back into Siberia, which can be a fight back, and then it is an all-out blast up the hill through Hayshed and into Lukey Heights and into the plunging MG hairpin, which is one of my favorite corners in the world, Arjuna.
You're bringing up corner names I didn't even know existed, but qualifying is almost halfway done. Road courses have a little bit more variability in terms of qualifying here. Drivers get 10 minutes rather than just the 5, and 4 flying laps. Now in the IndyCar series, usually you see 2 flyers, lap 1 and lap 4, as drivers use those middle laps to come back onto pit lane and get a fresh set of boots, burn off a little bit of the fuel as well. But in these bias ply tires, you expect them to be blasting around for all 4 of their laps. And you can see now, halfway through the session, it's Matt Taylor with a 1:27.78 that has the provisional pole position. It's hundredths back from there, though. You have to go all the way down to 12th position before you find a gap that is a full 1/10 of a second. This is remarkable, and I love to see Richie Hearn up there in 3rd position, although he's not just been able to get that pole position lap time like he had 12 months ago.
Yeah, just missing out by just under 1/10 of a second there. Very, very close margins around here, and that's not surprising. There's few maximum braking zones around here. Like I said, Honda, Siberia, and MG really only the places where you're going to be heavily onto the brakes. For the most part, it's a very quick track, as there Fowler's able to jump his way up into P2, or P1 rather.
Razmas up to 6 as the MadWorks Motorsports 1 and 2 for the time being, and Michael O'Brien makes it 3 of those cars inside the top 4, so they're showing up strong as they look to build the advantage at the front of the HyperX Team Championship. 4 minutes to go in qualifying. Let's grab a look at your weather conditions as well, because it's relatively cool, but somewhat conversely to what we tend to see in Lionheart competition. It's only going to get warmer from here. It is 8:30 in the morning on the 15th of November in simulator right now. I also look at that wind, DJ. What does that do to these Lotus 79s?
Well, even though the majority of the downforce in these cars is produced by the Venturi tunnels underneath them, by those tunnels that suck the car into the track, there is still enough aerodynamic aid on the top that it can really buffet them around a little bit. Specifically coming through Siberia that you watch right now, if there's a big gust of wind that hits you there, it can upset the rear of the car and make it want to kind of squeal around a little bit on you. The other thing that's going to be big to talk about is the headwind coming down the front straightaway. That means that car in front is going to be having more air pushing against him, and the draft is going to be stronger. So watch for some maybe more aggressive passes to be made going into that sweeping turn 1 because of the increased efficacy of the draft.
MadWorks Motorsports 1, 2, and 3. Michael O'Brien jumps up to 3rd. Bumps Richie Hearn down to 4th, and I think most of the lap times within the top 7 or so are already done. If there's going to be a surprise, it will emerge from outside the top 10. Adam Frazier up to 11th. Tyler Groff stays in 17th, but Alex Gouillon bumps him down just a position there. Qualifying works itself to its completion. Let's talk about the strategy as well. 46 laps, and we are realistically expecting a 22-lap fuel window, DJ. How do you fuel save here? How are you going to try and find those 2 laps to make it just a one-stop race?
Well, you can definitely do a little bit of fuel saving up through the 2nd sector when you're coming in through some of the fast sweepers that we're looking at on your camera right now. Just lifting off, feathering the throttle a little bit down that area. The other way you can do it, big lift and coast, going down into that downhill MG corner. When you go into there, you can lift off before, let the weight of the car kind of help you to slow it down a little bit more. The other big way to do it is just find somebody to play the game with. Tuck up behind in the draft on this long straightaway, back off there and try to do it. The other thing, Arjuna, is this track really takes a toll on rear tires. The right rear in particular, there's a lot of load put on that tire, and there may be a chance that we see a driver or two actually opt to go for a tire change over the course of this race. Last year, there was actually talk about it before this new tire model was come in, where the tires wear a little bit faster.
You know, that would have been one thing that would have been nice to go and talk to the drivers about beforehand, but I was more concerned about pronouncing names correctly. But we'll see. We will see. I think that's what we like about this new tire models. It's not just on the road courses where we have that extra variable of tires, but even on the ovals as well, we are starting to see A little bit more of drama there. It looks like no cars left on track, so qualifying is basically done and dusted. 45 seconds, the clock will expire. Qualifying will be official. Matthew Schofield, Brett Accord, Brian Hotham, Cristobal Valenzuela, and Will Gibson not punching in lap times. Only one driver has an end-of-line penalty. What's that going to mean for Valenzuela? He's got a lot of laps here to try and work his way past. Where are your primary passing opportunities?
Primary passing opportunities are going to be going down into the southern loop, that long left-hander turn 2. You can take a multitude of lines into there to try to maybe get a sweep around the outside, but your two best ones are really going to be from there. Honda, the heavy right-handed hairpin, and then plunging down the hill into MG, although that's going to be a little bit more difficult. You have got to be very, very brave to be able to get a move done there.
Well, the time for talking is done. It's time to go racing for the Thunder Down Under. Let's go trackside here for round 5 of the Lionheart Retro Series. Let's run you down through the starting grid for the SimRace 247 Grand Prix of Phillip Island, presented by Gomez Sim Industries. So here is a look at the butt kicker starting grid. It's Chris Fowler who puts it on pole position. He becomes just our first repeat pole position winner of the year. Alongside him is his MadWorks Motorsports teammate of Matt Taylor. It's a MadWorks Motorsports trio at the front. Michael O'Brien in his native land, starting inside of Richie Hearn, who put it on pole last year. What does the former American open wheel racer in the real world have from the outside of row 2? Mike Rasmus and Marius Valiokis, 5th and 6th positions. Watch out for that RSR by butt kicker machine. He's got his teammate right behind. David Rodriguez in 7th, Christopher Reagan in the 19 in 8th. Gabriel Wood and Rodrigo Munoz complete the top 10 with Adam Fraser and Lionel Callisto 11th and 12th positions. David Sirwa, some work to do for the driver that sits 2nd in the point standings. Jim Herrick on his outside with Trevor Malone, Alex Guyon, Tyler Groff and Paul Jenkins right behind them. Chris Staples and the returning Mark Cohn through the top 20. Cohn won 2 of the Triple Crown races in 2021, a first outing for him in Lionheart competition in 2022. Luke Daniels and Luis Gonzalez Nunez share row 11, while rolling from 23rd is Chris Lanini, alongside is the blue and white of Scott Holmes in that 67. Ricky Harding looking to stay hard out of the wall with George Anzaldo, the series organizer, alongside. Danny Roberts in the yellow and black rolls from 27th, sharing row 14 with Robert and Mikes. Craig Forsyth and the Candyman Dustin Wardlow share row 15, while Hugo Gallas and Cristobal Valenzuela, the teammates, line up in row 16, although as mentioned, Valenzuela end-of-line penalty, he'll drop the tail end of the field. Cars with no lap times on the board: Will Gibson, Brian Hotham, Brett Accord and Matthew Schofield, the 36 cars that are locked and loaded for today's race. The cars are rolling, they've got a full pace lap, and as someone wisely mentions in the RaceBot TV YouTube chat, does mean that saving fuel is going to be just that little bit more difficult. So, will what we just talked about with fuel saving play itself out? Well, we're about to find out. As always, we've got featured onboards to walk you through. We got a long time to do so as well, but Marius Valiokis carries the butt kicker onboard camera. Sim racing is better with butt kicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com.
Chris Lanini in the number 92 has the Graphics Esports on board. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit them at graphicsesports.com.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez carries the SimRace 247 camera on the Team SimRace 247 car. Visit simrace247.com, where sim racing is for everyone.
And finally, Lionel Callisto carries the HyperX on board camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
Oh, I'm excited for this one. I don't think it's going to be as chaotic as it was last year, but what we saw, I think, at the end of 2021 was, with this newer tire model, sometimes it does start to build into a draft train, especially on these road courses. Very difficult to pass. Setting up your moves is going to be important, and executing on pit road. Pit entry is difficult, pit exit and merging back onto the track is something we'll be watching for as well today. But when it comes to pit lane, the thing to remember, no driver aids, there's no pit lane speed limiter. It's all down to the drivers and their feet.
It is indeed. Remember, we talked about earlier Marius Valiokis catching that pit lane spinning penalty at Watkins Glen earlier this year. Valiokis now starting off in 6th. He's going to be looking to capitalize from there, and so drivers are going to have to be careful. The pit exit, a little bit wonky. The pit entrance, very, very narrow. It's very easy to put a tire out onto the grass as you're coming on in and actually loop the car around, so drivers are going to have to be careful of that.
I've actually never done basically everything you don't want to do at Phillip Island in endurance racing. I've never done that, although my teammate Adam Blocker, he doesn't like me to mention this, but he managed to blow an engine in a V8 Supercars race that we had here together with one another. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the SimRace247 Grand Prix of Phillip Island, presented by Gomez Sim Industries. It's a MadWorks Motorsports 1, 2, and 3. What does the rest of the field have in store for them? It's Chris Fowler in control of the field. We're racing for the Thunder Down Under. It's a great launch from Fowler, not such a great launch from Matt Taylor, who sees his teammate slide to his inside as they run themselves down into do-end corner. Outside line has the momentum, but cold tires means he can't take advantage of that. Michael O'Brien up into first, couple of cars kicking up some dirt, but the field safely through the southern loop as they begin to wind themselves up for this 46-lap race.
Indeed, they do. Everybody being nice and cautious here at the beginning as O'Brien and Rasmus really starting to push forward. Taylor down 2 positions. He is not going to be happy with that start. Here comes the heavy braking into Honda. Are there going to be any problems coming down into this corner?
Looks tidy, a bit of lockups in the back, but I think we survived. Yeah, all cars still on the black stuff, which is great to see. Valioka's got a bit swarmed on the start. Chris Reagan's up 2 positions, couple of cars going 3 wide, but at the front it's a breakaway from Chris Fowler and Michael O'Brien. Taylor able to fend off the advances of Mike Rasmus. Richie Hearn slides down to 5th. A nice and tidy start. This is where things get fun. Up and down you go into Lukey Heights. Just look at the plunge that you've got down the hill. It's such a treacherous braking zone. I think a couple of cars in the background might think about taking this too wide. Oh, we've got a spinner around Craig Forsyth, Ricky Harden as well. A couple of issues for them, but the rest of the field survives that one. Leading lap 1 is Chris Fowler.
And it's very, very easy to do that there. Oh, that's Richie Hearn going for a little bit of an excursion out onto the grass, but very easy to lock up the tires going down into MG like that. The weight of the car is pulling you down, speeding you up as you go into the braking zone.
Richie Hearn then from 5th down to 7th. Actually didn't lose too much time when all things were said and done, so I don't think he'll be too disappointed, but he's swarmed. He's the meat in the sandwich, with the bread being the RSR by butt kicker camp. Valiokas in front, Rodriguez behind, and I think now you settle into the rhythm. It's not going to be an easy fuel save by any means, but what we do know is at least if you save some fuel, you make your pit stop just a little bit shorter as Reagan locks up. Valiokas unable to take advantage, looks like as well. Fraser and Herrick side by side. The race winner a couple of weeks ago trying to make something happen.
Yeah, and that's what I talked there a little bit about, the fight back that you can have coming through Siberia, sort of the tighter hairpin followed by the wider hairpin on that outside corner. And one of the reasons here I think a lot of drivers were not seeing too much aggression is they're trying to be very soft on these tires. They don't want to overexert them early, get too much heat, too much wear into them. You've got to try to make these last through the entire race if you can.
I'm very curious if we actually are going to see any tire changes today, but already completing lap number 2 at the front of the field. Further back as they work through the final couple of corners, Tyler Graf trying to harangue the back of Chris Staples. Tyler Graf, great qualifying yesterday in the Lionheart IndyCar Series race at Silverstone, but things went from bad to worse from him on the immediate start. Oh, we got a spinner. Matthew Schofield at the back of the pack has looped it around through the final corner, but he'll get that spun back around in time. Rodrigo Munoz gets past Gabe Wood, who's been shuffled back in line. Turn 1, if you're just not on the preferred racing groove, it's so easy to slide backwards. He'll fight back with Lionel Kalisto in that 97.
Yeah, and Lionel here's going to have the preferred line if he can get it back from him, but a little bit of a back off there going down into Honda. Here, that's what I was looking for, a little bit of a look into Honda. Not going to be able to get it done there for Lionel, but I like the restraint there. Once again, not wanting to abuse the tires, not wanting to go too hard too early, and now he's going to be close enough to be able to do a little bit of fuel saving down the long front straightaway.
No racing driver wants to be concerned, reserved, No racing driver wants to be passive, and in a race like this, sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. Let's grab a look, if we can, at what happened on the start. Let's begin with the action down into Lukey Heights, or through Lukey Heights. Oh, Ricky Harden off to the grass, and Craig Forsyth on a one-way trip off into the kitty litter. Dustin Wardlow, I think, got mixed up in that one as well. He just runs himself wide.
Yeah, and that they're coming in for Ricky, that part of the reason for that is that you really want to try to take this rise up the Luki Heights as flat out as possible, and if you don't just offer the slightest lift of the throttle, that car's going to understeer out wide. That's exactly what happens. Just touched the grass, and that's what set off the dominoes.
Not too bad for everyone else, though. I think we've got a pass at the front of the field as Marius Valiukas gets past Chris Reagan for 5th position. A bit of back and forth, but the RSR by Buttkicker car slides on through there. But the disappointing thing for him is it's now a 1.7 second gap to those in front, and Reagan wants to continue the fight to the inside. He'll come through turn number 4. He'll grab 5th position back. It's great to see the fighting. Not great if you're looking at the timesheets.
No, not at all, and you need to be within about a second on this circuit to be able to pull in behind in the draft, although as the wind continues to blow at about 10 miles an hour here, I would amp that up to about 1.2 to 1.3 seconds to feel the draft down the front straightaway. Again, that headwind coming off of the ocean is just going to serve to make that draft stronger.
I love that we get those sort of things. The fact that, you know, it is an ocean that we have around here is, Reagan a little bit slow on the exit, but that will really just let him power down off the corner. Let's now grab a look at what happened with Richie Hearn through the final corner, just understeer City, and he's lucky that he doesn't spin that around. That is some wonderful car control from that 70 car to make sure he keeps it on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he didn't lift through that at all, Arjuna, which makes it even more impressive as here's Valiukas now trying to have a look back on Reagan. This battle just continuing on.
It's great to see the ding-dong back and forth between the two of them, but again, now the gap up front is 1.8 seconds to 4th. Mike Razmas, the only one trying to fight with the Madworks Motorsports domination here in Phillip Island. Tyler Gruff gets past Chris Staples up to 17th position. Danny Roberts, what a start to the race from him. He's already up +7 into 20th position. You make hay while the sun shines, and that seems to be the strategy from the number 43 car. We check in with those up front, and I think if you're Mike Razmas, you're not so disappointed here. We talked about the difficulties of fuel saving. Well, getting a triple draft from those in front of him, he's in a prime position to be the one to try and do something different.
Exactly. And so for him, he is able to really back off around here. The way this strategy is going to play out, it reminds me a little bit of the race at Mosport last year, where you have either got to be fuel saving from the very downbeat of the race and be thinking about that to be able to make a one-stop work, or you have just got to absolutely go for broke the entire time and not worry about those fuel numbers.
That's not the first time we've seen a car spin through the penultimate corner. That's Gabe Wood this time that's had the issue, and he's tumbled down. In fact, coming down onto pit lane, he'll drop from inside of the top 10. Was looking like another good day for him. It was getting closer with O'Brien at the front. Let's grab a look then at what happened to the other car that did something very similar. We'll grab a look at the 66 of Matthew Schofield, who's seemingly retired this car, and he just gets a little upset, pushes wide, and from there, he was never regaining control.
No, he really wasn't, and the trick there is delaying that throttle input when you come around, as we've got another car off in that same area. That is just catching drivers out, although that's a little bit before directly coming out of the corner. I wonder if that's just a little bit of tire spin.
That's actually the Southern Loop. This is a difficult track to figure out where you are, because all the corners somewhat blend together, if we're being completely honest. It's a wonderful racing facility, but it is very tricky to figure out where you are at any one point in time. Now, I mentioned it's difficult to get onto the anchor, so I wonder if it was a self-inflicted mistake or if it was assisted. Let's grab a look at the incident then for the 43 of Danny Roberts. Just blows past the braking zone, locks the inside front, and he runs himself wide into that kitty litter.
Yeah, and it's so tempting to do that, Arjuna, because you just want to try to carry as much speed into the Southern Loop as possible. But like I said, if you get onto the outside of the Southern Loop, that track crowns right there, and you just find yourself off camber and not really able to get the car turned.
So Matthew Schofield has retired. Will Gibson and Gabe Wood, two cars that have been forced to take a trip down pit lane. We missed what happened to Gibson. I wonder if maybe we saw a lot of puffs of smoke into a Honda and Siberia on lap 1. I wonder if maybe something happened there. Here's a look at Gabe Wood's incident. And is it going to be a similar thing? Pushes wide. Oh, yep, 2 wheels on the grass. In fact, might have got 4 wheels onto the grass. And from there, well, he's basically invited to come down onto pit road.
Yeah, exactly. Better almost to come down pit lane there, get a little bit of a top off, and then you only have to worry about one more stop over the course of the race. So, yeah, just kind of taking advantage of circumstances there.
Here's the shot rearward of the driver that put in on pole position at our only other road race this season. Of course, it didn't go his way. Matt Taylor emerging victorious when the final chapter was written of that race at Watkins Glen, but Valioka sees behind him Reagan Hearn and then his teammate in David Rodriguez. The gap has built up to just over 2 seconds as they get ready to finish lap number 7.
Yeah, that gap certainly growing larger and larger. 2.3 right now as they cross over the line. Valiokas needs to try to push ahead here. That is certainly out of draft range here at this point. He really needs to try to close in, but I don't know if he's got it with these 4 drivers up front just absolutely running the wheels off somebody else off.
That's Craig Forsyth again, just not being his day, I tell you what. We did see on the run down into turn 1, Michael O'Brien built up a whole head of steam as he powered down into turn number 1. He's biding his time as well, and I know he's a driver that really wants to make his way into HyperX victory lane today. It would be his first victory in the 22 previous races that he started. His best finish was a couple of second places to his name, including this season at Watkins Glen, but it means a lot when you have a bona fide home race, which it is for the 45 machine.
Yeah, exactly, and especially with the disparity of not many Australian circuits being on the iRacing service, this kind of being one of the few with Oran Park and Winton, I believe the only other two. Little bit of a lockup there in front from Chris Fowler. Easy thing to do going down into MG, but that's going to be a little sign of weakness here for the 45, and he may want to just try to push a little bit more.
Hopefully some more Australian tracks coming soon. I think we're getting Sandown in the future as well. Of course, a new generation of V8 supercars being launched in, I believe it's just about 12 months' time. We were meant to be introduced midway through this year, but for cost reasons and as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was pushed back very slightly. Those new generation V8 supercars have already been tested in anger on track, and we'll see what they shape up and potentially here on the sim as well. So working lap 9 of 46. Remember, 22 laps is our expected fuel window. You need to get to 23, though, to try and make it to the end of the race. So we'll find out in about 12 laps' time if anyone's going to be bold enough to try and make anything happen. This time it's O'Brien that locks up on the run in towards the Honda corner at turn 4, working through Siberia, which cambers up on exit as you get the power down, run yourself through turn 7 into turn 8, one of my favorite portions of track throughout the globe. It's just such a challenge that when you get it right, it is so ultra rewarding. The battle up front is close. The battle behind sees a spinner in the form of the 67 of Scott Holmes. It wasn't as crazy to start this race off, but I do think we've had plenty of incidents back in the pack.
Yeah, we certainly have a lot of drivers here just finding themselves with a little bit of problem going on all over the course of it, and that looked to be coming out of MG. I think that Arjuna may have just been a little bit of over-aggression getting onto the power.
See, a couple of other cars have had trips off circuit as well. Let's see if we can figure out what's happened there, because looks like Chris Lanini's had a spill. Maybe Danny Roberts has had another moment as well. It's all going on as Cristobal Valenzuela has had another moment. That penultimate corner is really catching people out. David Sirwa on the charge, gets past Adam Frazier into the southern loop. He's up into the top 10.
All right, we were talking about him at the beginning of the race, and a little bit surprised to see his pace in the early stages on the ovals, but this is where I really expected Sirwa to be good. A little bit of a defensive line there going into Honda. He's now got Rodrigo Munoz right ahead of him. He's going to be trying to close that gap down, maybe get a little bit of a move done here in the next lap or so.
Just see that accordion as they come through into the corner. It closes up on the brakes. It opens up as they get onto the power as well. It's just that typical thing that happens on road courses. So let's have a look at what happens. So Chris Lanini spins it by himself. I think that's Robert Mikes potentially that gets involved. Luis Gonzalez Nunez is the one that takes avoiding action. There, in fact, is Robert Mikes. Now, Danny Roberts, I think, might have had his own issues when this was going on. So let's grab another look. Here's the battle side by side into the corner, into that southern loop. Maybe Lanini touching the grass on his own. Danny Roberts coming through into picture as well. He's just pushed wide. He is pushed way, way wide there, and not for the first time we've seen cars self-inflicted mistakes there. Great shot of both those cars in view.
Exactly. And again, little bit of closeness there up at the front of this little pack. That is Sirwa able to get by Munoz.
And now we're going to pick up what happens to Scott Holmes. Oh, on the power, on the grass as well, loops it around, and I think then struggles to spin it back and then get it into a clean pocket of air. There you see he's perpendicular basically to the track and has to find an opportunity to roll back. That very much will have halted his momentum. 10 laps into this one. Again, not as crazy as it was last year. That's not to say that it hasn't been full of thrills and spills so far.
No, indeed. A lot of single-car incidents, a lot of drivers just having a quick lapse in concentration around here, which is something that you can't afford to do. There's not a lot of time to catch your breath on this circuit. The only chance you get is on that start-finish straightaway. It's not like there's a long backstretch where you can really catch your breath, especially when you're running in groups like this that we're seeing the whole field really run in. You've got to constantly be on your game.
Down the hill, through Lukey Heights, it's now Trevor Malone and Chris Staples that have got mixed up, the 96 and the 34. We're just saying that it has been relatively calm. It's like the drivers are trying to prove me wrong.
I think they're listening into the broadcast and just trying to spite you, Arjuna.
Yeah, that explains a lot. I'm not great at multitasking. I don't know about you, and I don't know about some of these drivers. Here's the look at what happened. So it's down the hill. Oh, that's a lunge, optimistic, and it's looped by himself on the brakes by Chris Staples, and Trevor Malone is really the one that gets the worst of it there.
Yeah, really is. Unfortunate issue there for him. We take another look at it. Again, this is just such a tricky braking zone to get right because you're coming in at full chat, and then you've got to bring it on down. Very optimistic lunge, and just, I think, locking up the rear brakes there.
Spending so much time looking at replays, but it's for a reason. At the front of the field, there's not too many things going on. You will notice the cloud cover is really intensified as the track is starting to get a little bit darker, and maybe will help the tires just a little bit more. Now who's off the track? Luis Gonzalez Nunez spins around the 14 machine. And it's not just him, but I think George Anzaldo's had a moment as well into the southern loop. I think this is the fourth different time. I'm glad I mentioned just how tricky that braking zone is, DJ, because sometimes it turns out commentators do know what they're talking about.
Indeed, and like I said, and like we've been saying, it's so tricky because you want to just carry as much speed in there as possible, and if you have the slightest lockup on the brakes, that is just that little bit of loss of traction that can send you off to the outside of it and really throw you off. You've got to be very careful about it. Ooh, there is that nice little spin around for the 14 of Nunez.
Now, it's a little different from what we saw with Scott Holmes, who pushed wide onto the grass. This is just on the power down. You can see the car's already got that your moment into it as he tries to apply the power through those substantial rear tires, but clearly the tires were not having any of it, but we'll hopefully calm down for now. We refocus on that battle for fifth. Valioka's 2.9 seconds back from the fight for fourth, so I think basically now it's a four-car breakaway. We're not going to talk too much about anyone else, at least for now. Here's a look at the track conditions again. We mentioned it was going to get warmer as we work our way towards midday here in Phillip Island, but still relatively cool. That wind still rather gusting and strong across the track.
Yeah, indeed. The other thing that we really didn't talk about too much is that 72% humidity. You know, that is actually pretty crucial because that means because of a couple of reasons. One, you're going to have a little bit more grip through the corners because there's going to be more air pushing down on those wings. The other part of it is that draft is going to be stronger when you come down the main straight because the air is thicker and that leading car has to push more of it out of the way.
See, Chris Staples has had a moment. David Rodriguez gets past by David Ciron now. Good charge from that 99 car. Let's give him a round of applause. Oh, they come to blows, though, and both of them will lose out. And oh, my word, big old stack up. I think that was Adam Frazier that was the one that was running into the back, potentially, of Rodrigo Munoz, who was caught in the middle of a sticky situation. But again, the southern loop bites, and it bites hard.
It does indeed, and that side-by-side looked very nice, very good competition, and then everything just absolutely coming to blows there. Yeah, Frazier looks like he is towed back into the pits, some pretty extensive damage on that number 88 machine.
My word, maybe I'm going to stop talking about how this race is less crazy than last year because we're 14 laps in and we're starting to very much lose track of what's going on. Here's a look at the incident, though. So Rodriguez has a send, and he loops it by himself. Sirwa tries to give him room, but the driver that's second in the championship, oh my word, there's the big old stack up. And Rodrigo Munoz, nothing he could do.
No, nothing at all there. Unfortunately, Munoz was just trying to get by, trying to not be involved in that incident. You can see that check up there from him, and behind him, Frazier just not really recognizing that he was slowing down and came in at full chat.
Nice little super slow-mo there. Frazier is also taking the tow back to pit lane, so he also incurred significant damage there. Still looking at the battle at the front of the field. These guys are the only ones that are taking it nice and easy to roll through this opening stint of the race. David Rodriguez rolls his machine down onto pit lane, so he's incurred some damage as a result of that as well. David Sirois still out there in 10th. We'll track the lap times to see what he's doing in comparison to his best laps of the race so far. Dustin Wardlow getting past Cristobal Valenzuela. To the inside comes George Anzaldo. Excuse me, to the outside goes George Anzaldo, looking for a way past the Backfire Motorsports number 33. The Candyman sails off into, I want to say, the sunrise, but it's getting increasingly dark the further we go into this race.
Yeah, it is. The cloud cover coming in here. Here comes a big move for George, though. Down to the inside, locking up. Good heads up from all drivers, and a spin off to the inside.
Lanini gathers it up in time, but I think that was somewhat optimistic. He saw and Lanini's lost it on the grass. I think it was optimistic of him to even try the move initially. He saw the door opened by George Anzaldo. Battle for the lead, though. Here comes O'Brien around the outside, feeds him to the inside of the southern loop. The teammates side by side, and new race leader, give it to Michael O'Brien.
O'Brien, sick and tired of waiting behind. He is ready to push ahead now. The question is if he's done enough fuel saving to be able to make that work, or if Chris Fowler is going to be comfortable here. He may be able to do a little bit of fuel saving. Was that maybe a little bit of an orchestrated move to allow for both of these drivers to just sip enough fuel to make it on a one-stop?
I like, if it is teamwork, I like the idea, right? That's what having three cars at the front allows you to do. Work together to execute a strategy. So here's a look. Anzaldo locks up. Lanini sees a door, but Anzaldo ping-pongs back to the inside of the track. It was a door that was closing. Lanini optimistic, but I don't think I'll place too much of the blame on him. Side by side with the 67, pushes himself wide through the Cambridge in Siberia, and he's off into the gravel trap.
Yeah, Chris there just trying to take an opportunity, and Anzaldo was off very wide. That corner was going to close a little bit, but not to the extent that I say you shouldn't at least try to poke your nose in there, see if you can force him offline. I'll tell you what, though, Michael O'Brien already up to a 0.4 of a second advantage. I would have thought that Fowler would have closed in a little bit more. This is going to be telling, though, here to see what happens on the straightaway if Fowler's going to close back up. Fowler's
not close enough, I tell you. He closed, but not to the extent that we saw from O'Brien through portions of the race. Oh, Craig Forsyth, watch it, watch the rejoin. Here comes the leaders. He scampers out of the way, shortcuts the southern loop. That would have been a heart-in-mouth moment for both pairs, the leaders and that car that was off the track, because rule number one of racing is don't hit your teammate. Rule two, hold your brakes and rejoin safely. It's as simple as that. These four, though, even though there's been a swap around for the lead, DJ, they are 3.3 seconds clear. If I'm any of these drivers, I'm somewhat looking forward to the second half of the race where they can really maybe let the belts loose and go at it, hammer and tongs.
Well, the one catch to that, Arjuna, is remember, because this is such a tight fuel window that they have to make, they've got to be doing we've got another car off in the back there in the background.
That's Chris Staples. Go ahead, though. There's so many cars off, we're going to have to start talking about some of these points rather than focusing on what's going on with some of them.
Exactly. But what I was going to say is that it's not like in the second stage of this race, that second stint, you're going to be able to let loose. You still have to be doing a massive amount of fuel saving. Now, the only way that I can see a true gloves-off moment out of any of these four is if somebody's able to make it to lap 24 on this pit cycle. I don't think that is possible. I think getting to even 23 is pushing it. And so what that means is that when you come out on that second stint, it's not like you can go for broke. You still have to be hitting those fuel numbers again and again and again.
Whatever cloud cover there was has lightened itself up, or in both ways, I guess, it's lightened up. The track is now being baked very slightly again, but that point of the race now where whatever you've done with fuel saving, you can't really change. You're committed to what you've done, so we'll find out in about 4 or so laps time what the situation is. So let's grab a look at Chris Staples. I can tell you that Craig Forsyth lost it by himself into the southern loop, and by all indications, Chris Staples has done the same thing. It's just so tricky. Valiokos, what's happened to him? Oh no! The man who put it on pole position at Watkins Glen has looped it through Siberia, I think. Doesn't look like he's got damage, though, to that 23.
Oh, no, he's got some front wing damage on that, Arjuna. Look
right
at that
side.
Right front. Yeah, I'm not sure how he accrued that.
Now, a break out the telestrator, the yellow pen, there's the damage. You can see it clearly. Now, that's going to really hurt through some of these higher speed corners. And Lukey Heights, you think it's slow, but it is very much a high speed, high commitment sort of a... Oh, George Anzaldo around as well. Okay, we're gonna calm down at some point. I don't know what it is about Phillip Island, but it's not the first time that I've seen more replays than actual racing. It happened in the IndyCar Open Series race here in 2021. Chris Fowler back to the lead.
Yeah, Fowler back up to the lead, putting a good pass on just around the outside there of Doohan, and that's going to demote Michael O'Brien back into second place. Gonna have to see here if he wants to stay in behind. By the way, Erasmus holding the fastest lap of the race in fourth.
Yeah, again, I think he's in a great spot. He's biding his time. He's being patient. Paul Jenkins onto pit lane along with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Now, given that a lot of these drivers expect not to make it, don't hate the call if you're Paul Jenkins, who is stationary for 7.9 seconds and gets himself rolling again. I think he's trying to get some track position, although he doesn't get the benefit of running that tank completely dry. These cars, rocket ships on low fuel. So here's a look at what happens to the RSR by Butt Kicker Machine through Siberia. It looks tidy until he's on the power, and he's going to get clipped. I'm not sure who that was. I think it's Richie Hearn. It
was indeed Richie Hearn that just caught him there. That little bit of a touch. That's just how sensitive these front wings are on that machine. We ride on board with Richie right now. You see Valiocas go around, tries to miss him, and Richie's got, I think, a little bit of damage there on the right front as well.
Let's grab a look, because he is now in front of Reagan. He's got a bit, but it's not as bad. I think that's what we can say about the Elite West Racing number 70.
Yeah, it's just a slight little upturn. That will be perfectly manageable. You'll just notice a little bit of understeer coming through the fast sweepers, but it's not going to be enough to really, really upset your entire race.
I think Luis Gonzalez Nunez has just lost it on pit exit with cold tires. Colder tires. I don't think we're seeing any tire swaps, but I think you might see that a couple of times. Valiocas, by the way, has already been stationary for 13 seconds and counting, so I think he's getting a front wing change on that car by virtue of that bit of contact with Richie Hearn. Focusing on the fight out front, the four drivers that have been somewhat calm through today's proceedings. What does it take if you're Mike Razmas here, DJ, to just settle into the rhythm, not get too excited? It's so easy at a physical, flowing, fast track like this to make mistakes.
Well, one of the biggest things that's going to be really helping him is fuel saving. If you are concentrating on those numbers, if you know what you've got to hit, whether you have a real or a virtual crew chief in your ear, maybe a heads-up display that's giving you those numbers, if you're focusing on that, it's going to prevent you from being really overly aggressive in trying to make moves that'll come back to bite you. So I think that may be a little bit of his saving grace.
Not the first time that George Anzaldo is locked up into Honda, although this time at least it's by himself, so no chain reactions caused that then take out other competitors, or I shouldn't say take out other competitors, but then mix up with other competitors. I think that's the better way to put it. Here's a look at what happens with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. So on pit exit, you can see he's using the longer pit exit and doing a Tony Hawk impression there, grinding on the white line that separates the grass and the tarmac itself. Then into the southern loop, just pushes wide on those colder tires and goes for a bit of a trip. Again, I don't think that's the last time that we're going to see it. Pit window is well and truly open, though. Brian Hotham worked his way up into 18th as Cristobal Valenzuela, Brecht Accord, Chris Lanini, and a whole bunch of cars down to pit lane. Will we see any of these front four down this time by?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be very surprised if we see Taylor Erasmus coming down pit lane. I wouldn't be surprised if Fowler has to dip, and there they go. Really interesting. Okay, Taylor coming down as well. Now, that means that Rasmus has been able to save some good fuel over the course of this race. Look at him to potentially try to stretch this.
The question really, though, in my mind, does he go 23 laps? As there goes Richie Hearn, Chris Reagan. They've extended past 21 as well into the box. You've got to execute now. You can't afford to make a mistake. Lionel Callisto, I think, has had a trip through the grass on pit entry, but has gathered it up in time. You'll be hoping it's not an unsafe pit entry. They leave in formation, although Matt Taylor with a bit of a longer stop. 7.4 for Fowler, 6.6 for O'Brien. It's 8.8 for Matt Taylor.
And interesting there, the number 20 of Chris Fowler took tires on that stop. So he's going to take a little bit of time here to get those tires up to temperature. It's going to be a little bit faster here, I think, for O'Brien to be able to close in behind.
So back onto track they come, as now I see the 34 of Trevor Malone is indicated as being off the racing surface, has gathered it up in time and rolled it back. It's deceptively tricky, isn't this track, DJ? I mean, it's one where you think it's super simple as elevation change, but it's isolated to a couple of corners. These drivers are very much proving how difficult a challenge it is to put a lap together, as here comes Razmas. He does not extend. He comes down on lap 22.
All right, so it's going to be close there for Rasmus. We'll have to see if anybody else is able to make it any further. Hearn, Reagan, all coming in as well, waiting for the Watchman and Brian Hotham. Those are the only other two that have not stopped here at this point. And you're right, Arjuna, it is a very, very difficult track, and it's kind of like, for the reason that I talked about earlier in the broadcast, it's a bike circuit. And so it's not necessarily made for four wheels, and that presents
Richie Hearn. Richie Hearn has gone 23. Excuse me, no, never mind. My timing screen playing some lies to me there, just for a moment. He rolls off, as does Razmas, who was stationary for 7.4, so he won't jump to the lead. It's the teammates again, squabbling side by side into turn one. O'Brien back to the point of the field. Razmas is in the leading draft, and that is crucial. There's a lapped car behind, that's not too much of a factor, but Matt Taylor has lost the draft of the leaders.
Yeah, he's about 2.3 seconds behind, and what I'm going to be interested to see here is if O'Brien and Fowler, knowing that they don't have the fuel now, are going to do what you talked about earlier, absolutely go for broke, push these cars as hard as they can to try to get ahead. A little bit of a lockup there ahead for Chris Fowler would tell me he's doing exactly that.
Michael O'Brien went shortest of all in this leading three, so he'll be in first. We'll have a slightly longer stop potentially as well. Let's grab a look at Lionel Kalisto's strip down pit entry and see what happens here. Oh, he's gone in hot. Oh, this is not going to be pretty. Into the wall, does he go? Yes, he does, and causes a bit of a traffic jam for those oncoming as well, and that is why I believe Lionel Kalisto is out of the race.
Yeah, it's some pretty heavy damage there to the rear of the car, and not easy wing changes on the rear end. Yeah, big hit there. You can see some damage on the front wing as well. That is going to be day done and dusted for the little train.
Is that his nickname?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I like nicknames. I like that nickname as well. Scott Holmes, another driver that's had to call it quits, I do believe. He had a tow to pit lane, and now I'm not sure exactly what happened to him, although I'm getting word that potentially it was again on cold tires on pit exit. Let's have a look here. He's right behind the Candy Man, Dustin Wardlow. There's traffic coming. Oh, and that's what I was talking about with the pit road merge, one of the divided by Zero Motorsports black and yellow cars. And Scott Holmes not recognizing the fact that there was a car coming straight into the path of the car that's up to speed. And I always say it's the driver's responsibility that's rejoining to be smart, but you know, watching that, I wonder if maybe that car that was already up to speed could have left a little more room.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Arjuna. You can take an earlier apex into doing and avoid that, and your relative box is going to be telling you the drivers are coming out of pit lane. You're going to see those drivers there. You've got to be a little bit more heads up about that, so I'm going to completely agree with you there.
I mean, it's six of one, half a dozen of the other, isn't it? It's one of those kind of a moments. Here's another, oh my God, it's so many replays that we're taking a look at. Is it Brett Accord? It is Brett Accord. So, synchronized off the track. Was there a puddle of oil? They'll certainly be claiming there was, but Brett Accord and Cristobal Valenzuela both off the track, and I think in the case of sorry, I heard an engine blow, and I'm not sure who that was. Was it live or was it on replay? And now I am all sorts of confused, more confused than I've already been so far this race.
It has certainly been a bit of a confusing one, as now we've got another thing to deal with here for our leaders. We've got some lap traffic that they're going to have to contend with. Now that is Luis Gonzalez Nunez getting out of the way for
Craig
your
Forsyth,
leaders.
sorry.
Oh, it's Forsyth, excuse me.
But your point is very well taken. Lap traffic might play a factor here. O'Brien deep into the corner. He had opened the advantage up to 1 full second. It's going to close as a result of that. Matt Taylor has lost the toe of those behind him. Excuse me, he's losing track of those in front of him. That's the words that I was trying to use to put my point forward. So no driver was able to do that magic 23 lap stint. So I like these sort of races now where it's pedal to the metal, it's gung-ho approach from here to the checkered flag.
Yeah, indeed it is. It is go for broke here, and Mike Rasmus looking like he is putting some good pressure to the back of Fowler. He's able to actually take an earlier apex there, and now remember, Fowler took tires on that last stop, and I talked about the right rear disadvantage around here. It's going to be very, very tricky to see, but I think this could be a move.
We are halfway through the SimRace247 Grand Prix of Phillip Island, presented by Gomez Sim Industries. It's a 3-car breakaway at the front of the field. Michael O'Brien leads in his native land. Behind him his teammate Chris Fowler, but chasing them down and trying to spoil the Madworks Motorsports party is Mike Rasmus in the 68. You're watching RaceSpot TV for coverage of the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. The run to the checkered flag coming up next.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back for the Thunder Down Under. We're watching coverage of the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing. We're in Australia at Phillip Island for the SimRace247 Grand Prix of Phillip Island, presented by Gomez Sim Industries. Hello everyone, alongside DJ Clark, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. We saw the pass for second under commercial break. Mike Rasmus getting past Chris Fowler, but what has happened in the background is even more important. Matt Taylor has just made a mistake. He has slipped behind Richie Hearn. It's been a helter-skelter, tumbling sort of an opening half of this race, DJ. We thought it would be chaos. It's been more chaotic than anyone could have predicted.
Indeed, and as opposed to last year where we saw a big multi-car chaotic incident at the start of the race, we've seen a lot of single-car incidents, drivers just making little itty-bitty mistakes over the course of the lap that is catching them out, and it's certainly going to be a bit of a war of attrition out here and to see who can keep all four tires on the black stuff for the longest.
It's a little different to what we saw last year, though, in terms of last year it was Sage Karam 29th to 1st. It went like that for him. In a blink of an eye as well. It's been less frenetic like that. No one making that hard charge up through the field. The Southern Loop has claimed yet another victim. Matt Taylor this time pushing hard and pushing too much. A little bit loose, a little bit squirrely, and from hero to zero, excuse me, makes that mistake and slides behind Richie Hearn. There comes that 70 machine. At the front of the field, it is still Michael O'Brien that leads here at Phillip Island. He's got Razmas 1.2 back, Chris Fowler a further 4/10 behind him, and we were talking during that break, DJ, we think that if Michael O'Brien extends that gap up to about 2 seconds, he's looking good, but remember that he was almost a full second longer in the box, a full second shorter, I should say, in the box than those behind him. He's got to make sure he makes a bit of a breakaway here before we get into that splash and dash cycle to take us to the checkered flag.
Yeah, indeed he does. This is going to be very, very crucial. He's got to make sure to get it right. He does not... Whoa! That was a big squirrel there coming off of the corner for Chris Fowler. That's going to set him back a little bit, dropping him about a second back to Mike Marasmus.
It will be good if you're in that camp of that number 68 machine, that's for sure. Now, what else has happened to Matt Taylor? Getting word that he's had another moment. Now, this is coming in towards a Honda turn 4. Oh, he's trying to find a line. He finds a line that's basically on the curb, on the grass, on the gravel. Locks up and loses about 2.5 seconds to Richie Hearn, who sits now comfortably in 4th position. We've got just over 16 laps to go, about 16.5 laps as Michael O'Brien has put some lap traffic between him and those behind. We'll focus, though, at least for the moment, on some battles further back. It's Luke Daniels that leads, David Rodriguez, a newly minted Retro Series winner, Jim Herrick, who sees Paul Jenkins go to his outside.
Indeed, Jenkins going to try to make that sweep around the outside, but not quite able to do it. Instead, Rodriguez going to come down to the inside there through Doohan. Not able to get that move done, looking for a crossover. Don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, nice defense from Luke Daniels there to just park it on the apex at that right opportunity. You got to time it right as well. We always talk about putting it the car on the apex and stopping the momentum of those behind, but when you do it is even more important than how you do it. Here comes Rodriguez, though, back to the inside, in towards turn 4, behind Jenkins with a lunge of his own. As a bit of a moment there for Luke Daniels with his technical issues. Paul Jenkins has passed. Rodriguez gets bullied wide.
Indeed he does, and Jenkins is going to be hoping to pick up some of the pieces here as Rodriguez and Daniels continue to fight. This is obviously the battle for 11th place overall. Just outside that top 10, these drivers are really going to want to go. A little bit of a wider run there for Rodriguez. That's going to hurt him a little bit. He's going to have to get back to the racing line, and unless my eyes deceive me, there's a little bit of damage on the rear end of Rodriguez's car.
I trust your eyes more than mine, but you can see at the front, by the way, O'Brien has built that gap up to 1.5 seconds. Last time around was about 0.2 quicker than Razmas. It's good signs for Michael O'Brien to finally convert for a first victory in the Lionheart Retro Series. Looking back, though, at David Rodriguez as he worked on the rear end of Luke Daniels with 16 laps to go. Ricky Hardin pulls it to pit lane. You can also see just how much gravel and grass has been dragged onto the surface of the track. Drivers really extending the limits of the track, and I think, DJ, it's fair to say we both love this track and think it's very, very underrated. It is very, very challenging, though. Here comes Rodriguez once more.
He's going to send it down to the inside. Is he going to be able to make it work? He's got to try to feed him out. That's not the way to get the pass done necessarily, because he's going to have the inside line. Will Daniels coming through Siberia, and Rodriguez now just getting shuffled out a little bit more. Is he going to try to keep this side by side? I think he's going to have to fall back. Oh, no, as they come up through Hayshed, he's going to be able to continue this on.
Lukey Heights, the climb up the hill. Oh, David Rodriguez almost pushed a little too wide, but the boldness gets rewarded. He's got his man. He's up to 11th position, pushes wide through Lukey Heights, though. We'll hold on for the time being. What a move that was. Lots of bravery on both sides to stick it side by side. Ultimately, it is that number 10 that comes out on top, currently leading the butt kicker Rookie of the Year standings. We'll look up the front again, and things are calming down as they carve their way through the traffic. Gives us an opportunity to talk about the history of this facility, so underrated around the world. The Australian Grand Prix, or the race that eventually became the Australian Grand Prix, first ran on Phillip Island, on the streets of Phillip Island in 1928, the 31st of March. It closed, though, in 1940 with World War II going on. It reopened as a proper circuit in 1956. Unfortunately, though, in 1978, as the track surface deteriorated and the facilities started to deteriorate as well, the track had to close, partially because, well, Phillip Island, you can tell in the name, is an island. The bridge that connects this to the mainland was not sturdy enough to carry the vehicles, the heavy vehicles required to come and resurface the track. As Michael O'Brien, your race leader, down to pit lane, expect Razmas and Fowler in a lap or two's time. Track eventually was able to reopen in 1988, the 4th of December, in fact, to be specific, after the bridge got an upgrade, after they were able to get those facilities here, or rather, the trucks here to rebuild the facilities, and since then it's been open and it's seen supercars race here, but more significantly, it's seen motorcycles race here, and a lot of the corners are named after Australian motorcycle greats. The Gardiner Straight, the Pitt Straight, named after the 1987 world champion, Mick Doohan, of course, a legend in these parts. Turn 1's named after him.
Yeah, indeed it is. A lot of great history around this circuit, as you said, Arjuna, and one of the circuits that, frankly, I was completely unaware existed until my time on the iRacing service. And like you had alluded to, it's quickly become one of my favorites. It's an absolute blast to drive, whether you're out here in an open wheeler, one of these retro cars, a more modern wheeler, a Formula 3, or even a GT3 machine. It is just so much fun.
You also got I guess it's technically turn 3, that's named after Casey Sterner, who won his last ever race here, and it was rather fitting that just before the race, they named that corner after him. Just a nice little touch there. We saw Mike Razmas, we saw Chris Fowler stay out, remember, a second longer in the box. You talked about this earlier, you mentioned the tire change that we saw from Chris Fowler. It was so quick in the box that we suspect it was a one tire change, probably the right rear, given the load that goes through that specific tire. Will we see Razmas? Will we see O'Brien counter that? O'Brien, 7.9 seconds stationary.
Well, that would be within the window to be able to do that, so we'll have to see what he does. I would anticipate Rasmus and Fowler here probably coming in within the next 5 laps or so, trying to run this tank as empty as possible. Remember, we haven't really talked about it all that much, but these cars very, very sensitive to weight loads. As they get lighter and they get lighter and lighter, they get looser, they get more nimble, and they get faster, Arjuna.
They stay out at least for one more lap as we complete lap 34 this time around. Michael O'Brien has come out into a bit of clean air. He's got David Sirwell 1.4 seconds in front of him, but after that it's a 4-second buffer that he's got to Chris Reagan. So this is what he would have wanted to see as, oh, that's a little bit deep from the 17, so that's some lap traffic for him to work his way past. Getting down to 10 laps to go. Richie Hearn, whose internet has been somewhat consistent this year, well, it's starting to play up again.
Indeed it is, and something to note, Mike Rasmus just set the fastest lap of the race with a 120.37, so he is definitely in full push mode. Lockup.
That's not well. No, the big drama that I was referring to is this. The returnee, the 2022 debut for Mark Cohn has ended with a spin, or I should say, been marred by a spin. He's dropped down to 14th position as David Rodriguez will pull his way onto the box. Remember, Mark Cohn won 2 of the Triple Crown races in 2021. A shame that he wasn't trying to go one better in 2022.
Yeah, indeed. A little bit rusty there, I would have to imagine, for Mark Cohn getting back into the car after such a long breakaway. Let's see what happened to him. This is coming up down into MG. Gets onto the binders, just a little bit of a rear brake lock up there.
So easy to do down the hill. So it depends as well where you got that brake bias set. Here comes Razmas, here comes Fowler though onto pit lane. This is crucial. You've got to execute here on the pit lane. There's no speed, pit road speed limiter. It's very much about your right foot. How in control are you? Into the box they come for the final time today. There is the presumptive race leader. Michael O'Brien sweeps through the final corner. Razmas up and away. A little bit further back is Fowler. They'll take the long pit exit. Watch on the right-hand side. There they come up to racing speed. Where is Michael O'Brien in this equation? He's dropped back. We thought that the window for him, that buffer that he needed, he had managed to achieve it, but he's found himself about 1.5 seconds back from your new race leader. Mike Razmas has broken the MadWorks Motorsports domination of the SimRace247 Grand Prix of Phillip Island.
He has indeed, but crucially, he did not take tires on that stop. Now, I'm not sure if O'Brien did or not, but we'll have to see if that maybe presents an opportunity, a little bit of an advantage here for Fowler, who does have, we suspect, that fresher right rear. We'll have to see if that plays into anything whatsoever.
So 6.6 for that car. 7.0 for Chris Fowler in the 20. We did see him stay a little bit longer in the box, and then for Michael O'Brien, it was, as we said earlier, 7.9 seconds stationary for the final time in this race. Across the line this time by it will be 10 laps to go. Richie Hearn leads the way from Matt Taylor, Chris Reagan. All three of those cars yet to come down and box. So your net race leader is this man, Mike Razmas, and the 68 machine. 10 to go. Can Fowler, can O'Brien close him down? He's got a big old buffer there, 1.4 seconds back. Chris Fowler has to still get past David Sirois.
Right, and it looks like he's going to try to. No, he's not thinking about it. Maybe Sirois gave him a little bit of an opportunity. I think that is David recognizing that well, it may be a battle on track, is not one that he actually needs to have, and just kind of let Fowler on by there. Didn't look like too stout of defense from the Raven Lavoie Motorsports driver.
Now O'Brien, next car in line to try and work his way past. Oh, big old hornet's nest down the hill. Oh, big old squirrely moment there. I think that's Gabe Wood in the 04 machine with Ricky Harding, Chris Lanini, and Paul Jenkins behind. Luke Daniels again finds himself at the front of a train as Chris Staples in the 96 machine will come down to pit lane. There's some great fighting. It's what we like to see.
It is indeed, and it looks like after everybody's gotten the jitters out on this race, everything's getting a little bit calmer. Here we come, a little bit of a run down into that first corner again. Is that going to be Ricky Hardin able to pick up a position as well as Gabriel Wood goes on by?
Well, for a moment, I thought there he had got onto the grass on the inside and spun it around, but he holds onto it, he keeps control. Luke Daniels now, we'll see number 7, Ricky Hardin in his rearview mirrors as it's a 5-car train. At the very tail of this one is Paul Jenkins. We'll turn our attention briefly back up front because Chris Fowler has brought the gap down to just 1 second. There's some lap traffic playing a factor as well. We've talked about how that might impact things and influence the proceedings of this race. Mike Razmas's tires, we'll have to see how they're holding on now with 9 to go.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be a big, big talking point, like I said. And then we don't know, obviously, if O'Brien took tires or not, but he is a little bit out of this equation, caught back a little bit. David Sirois still in the way of that, but this is your battle for the lead on your screen. Only 9 to go, and now it is that time you talked about, Arjuna. It is foot to the floor, pedal to the metal, see how hard you can run it.
And remember, we're going road racing on back-to-back races, not back-to-back weeks. There is going to be an off week between now and our next round of this Lionheart Retro Series. We'll head to England, not to Silverstone, instead to Brands Hatch, as I believe, George Anzaldo's had a moment. He's regathering his composure as he works himself through. Mike Razmas has caught up to the back of Chris Reagan. I wonder, watching the lap times of Chris Reagan, if he's trying to extend this race to make it on a one-stop. Last time around was a 1:27.7 for him. Matt Taylor in second, a 1:28. That's the comparison that tells you what these tires are potentially capable of.
Yeah, it does indeed. And if Reagan or Hearn are able to extend this, because that is the leader right now, Richie Hearn, up at the top of the field, if either of them are able to extend this another 8 laps, color me impressed, because I did not think that was going to be possible.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible either, given where they stopped. They've been on track for, 17 laps, so assuming they do another 8, that's a 25-something lap stint. When we got told that 23 was going to be asking for a miracle, requiring lots of drafting and then a very light touch on the right foot, almost as though there's an egg underneath it and you don't want to break it. So Tyler Graf in the 98 will come down to the box this time around, his final stop of the race. The gap between Richie Hearn and Mike Razmas, who's already passed Reagan, which I think gives me that indication that maybe that 19 is doing something different on strategy and maybe just trying to work his way as far forward as he can on a strategy call rather than a track battle, is about 11 seconds. He can afford to lose a second, just over a second a lap, if he wants to try and extend this race to the checkered flag.
Yeah, exactly, and I've been listening here to a couple of those drivers' RPMs. I can tell you, Richie's definitely doing some fuel saving there, coming through definitely lifting and coasting a little bit, trying to keep it together. So there's a very real chance that Richie is trying to make this on a one-stopper. I don't know if he's going to be successful, but he is definitely doing some lifting and coasting and some feathering through the corners.
David Sirwa playing party spoiler here with Chris Fowler and Michael O'Brien. He's back in front of the MadWorks Motorsports duo and building a bit of a buffer to Mike Razmas. If everyone else who hasn't boxed is going to pit, Mike Razmas is sitting comfortably 2 seconds clear of the next car that's come down pit road, and Chris Fowler has had enough and doesn't just commit but launches himself into the grass, and he'll spin himself around and might even lose some track position to those behind him. He's found himself really all sorts of out of shape.
Yeah, indeed he has. Michael O'Brien actually able to get up and pass by him, so if things shake out here the way they think they might, that may demote him down to third overall.
Let's not grab a look at that. Let's figure out what's happened there. You see Richie Hearn in second position.
What happened to Richie? I'm not sure. That must have been a problem coming through MG.
Here's a look. We'll grab a look at it if we can. I just saw on my timing screen that he had slipped down to second. I immediately thought, oh no, poor Richie Hearn, who's been picture perfect so far today. So through Lukey Heights, looks nice and tidy. A little bit squirrely there if you ask me. Yeah, you can see sliding all the way through the corner, down the hill. Oh, too much speed, too much momentum, and that takes a long time to get it pointed back in the right direction. Now the get back to Razmas, 9.5 seconds.
Well, now the question's going to be is if Richie Hearn is still going to be able to do this and make that one-stop strategy that we suspect he may be on actually work. The one benefit that he's going to have is he's going to be able to tuck up behind Matt Taylor here to a little bit of extra fuel saving in that draft.
It's a good point, and I think, you know, he definitely didn't plan that, but it's got some positive benefits with it. It's one of those situations.
Exactly. We'll have to see if it plays out for him, though. He's definitely doing some lifting there, coming over Lukey Heights, coming down here at 5 to go at the line. A little bit tentative, getting onto the throttle there. That tells me he's doing some fuel saving. Doesn't look like he's going to duck down, but Taylor is.
And that puts any chance of the draft games helping Richie Hearn well and truly out of the equation. Has another brief moment there with his internet, but we've come to know and expect that with Richie Hearn. You know, we talk about that affecting the wheel-to-wheel action on an oval. DJ, what does that do when you're racing on a road course when someone's got an unstable internet connection?
Well, it makes it very similar to on an oval. You're not willing to take as an aggressive an attack as like we see there, the 99 being able to throw in, David Sirwa just sending it up the inside. You don't want to be nearly as aggressive. You'd be a little bit more passive, and you're still just a little bit scared because you never know where they're going to pop back up. It makes you be as consistent as possible, which is the antithetical thing to what you want to be when you're trying to attack somebody. You want to be a little unpredictable and throw them off their guard.
David Sirwa continues to play party spoiler for Michael O'Brien's chances of grabbing a first career Lionheart Retro Series victory. Mike Razmas has technically the net race lead. We'll wait and see if Richie Hearn can extend this one. He's opened a 6/10 buffer this time around. Of course, Mike Razmas, 4 career victories to his name. Where is he going to end up when all things are said and done? First victory for him at Gateway on a short oval in Season 4. Then last year he waited until midway through the campaign before winning at Sonoma in Season 5. There comes David Sirwa finally down onto the pit lane. After that, Silverstone saw Razmas emerge victorious again, entering HyperX victory lane, and he closed off the campaign, even though he wasn't in the championship mix at the end of 2021. On top, victorious at the High Speed Auto Club Speedway. 4 laps to go. Richie Hearn, well, do you gamble at this point, DJ?
I mean, at this point, Richie knows his numbers. I'm listening to his throttle control again. He's doing some really nice lifting, being very, very smart about where he's applying the throttle. I don't think he can make it to the end, but at this point, I am going to push this until the last possible minute, try to extract everything I can, because the briefest of pit stops that I can make is going to at least put me further up the field. He probably would come out at least in top 10.
So Michael O'Brien, 2.2 back from Mike Razmas at the front of the field. Jim Herrick has rolled himself onto pit road this time around. So has the Candyman. Dustin Wardlow. So final pit stops are underway here today. And here comes Richie Hearn. He can't make it. He blinks. Coming to the line. 3 laps to go.
All right, so that's going to resettle our order. Rasmus, O'Brien, Reagan, and Fowler. Everybody relatively spaced out here up front. It's going to be a big last-ditch effort if somebody wants to try to take this race away from Mike Rasmus.
There goes the Candyman. Richie Hearn finally reaches his box. Reagan is on lap 22 of his stint. Now, could he spring a surprise? Will he deprive Chris Fowler of a potential podium position? Richie Hearn is going to emerge behind Matt Taylor, so the strategy hasn't necessarily worked out. Richie Hearn, 5.3 seconds stationary in the box. That is a lot longer than I would have expected with just 3 laps to go.
Yeah, same here, Arjuna, but he's at least able to come out, and he's bought himself a nice little buffer. He's got about 9 seconds up the road to David Sirwa, so that's going to help him out especially nicely, and only about 1.2 seconds, 1.3 seconds behind Chris Fowler, or excuse me, behind Matt Taylor, so he may be able to close in there a little bit on that.
Watching up front, though, the gap is coming down very slightly, 10th by 10th, 100th by 100th, corner by corner. Michael O'Brien on the prowl. 1.6 seconds the deficit for now. 2 laps to go this time around. He's got some lap traffic to navigate his way through as well. One of the Backfire Motorsports machines splits him and Mike Rasmus at the front of the field. I think if it's going to happen, it's a little bit too late. I think if this race was 2 laps longer, maybe he'd have a chance, but you know, it says crash on the side of his car. He doesn't want to push hard enough that he does that very thing.
Yeah, indeed. This is definitely a point where you start to look a little bit at the big picture, look at that championship. So we've got a couple of more drivers coming down pit lane. That looks to be the number 19 machine. That's Reagan.
It is Reagan. We thought maybe he'd try, and he is stationary for 4.7 seconds. So, again, a bit longer than you'd expect as he'll come out with 2 laps to go. Will emerge behind David Sirwa. And in 7th position. Not a bad day overall for Chris Reagan in that number 19 machine. O'Brien's past the Backfire Motorsports car, now has to get past the Candyman Dustin Wardlow if he wants any chance of victory, as for the penultimate time they climb their way in towards Lukey Height. Madworks Motorsports domination to start this race off. Qualified 1, 2, and 3. But a 4-car breakaway saw the 68 machine holding strong, holding tight. And after the first cycle of pit stops, Mike Rasmus was looking like he was going on the offense. And he's got 1 lap to go to emerge victorious for the 5th time in his Retro Series career.
Indeed he does. Just 1 more lap of perfection is what he wants to try to achieve here. He's got that 1.8 second buffer, so he doesn't need to push too hard here on this run. He can be a little bit okay, a little bit backing off, but he's got to be a little bit scared there. O'Brien sets the fastest lap of the race last time by.
It was a 1:20.309, 2 tenths quicker than Mike Rasmus. It's too little, it's too late, I would think, at this point in the equation to really make a big swing at a fight for victory. Now, I see there's been another moment for someone through the southern loop that has really taken no prisoners. Mike Rasmus locks up the inside front, but manages to survive. Let's grab a look at that for a moment. That's Gabe Wood. That's sliding wide again. And oh, I tell you what, he was looking very promising for Wood, up inside the top 10. For now, sits in 16th position. It will be a day of what-ifs for that 04 machine. That southern loop, I mean, Australia is known for its unhospitable nature and the creatures that roam its lands, but it's just been mistakes after mistakes that have been the story of that second corner. Madworks Motorsports domination in qualifying. One man stood up tall and took the fight to the triumvirate at the front of the field. It is a 5th career Lionheart Retro Series victory for Mike Rasmus. He extends his points lead at the front of the field. He wins the SimRace247 Grand Prix of Phillip Island, presented by Gomez Sim Industries. 2nd place will go to Michael O'Brien. Give a thought to him. Still searching for that elusive victory. What more does the 45 machine need to do to get to the top step of the podium here in the Lionheart Retro Series?
Just a little bit of heartbreak there to lose out by 1 position on his home soil there for O'Brien. By the way, Richie Hearn able to come home in 5th after that late pit stop there. Taylor coming home in 4th, way back of that group. He was another early contender that we thought may have been a part of that battle for the lead.
And this man will have a smile from ear to ear. It took 5 races in 2022 to actually get to the top step of the podium. It's been very consistent though so far in 2022. Came into this race with a 2-point lead at the front of the championship. He'll be leaving with an even bigger margin to the rest of his competitors. Cars streaking across the line to finish off a calamitous, a chaotic, absolutely helter-skelter sort of a race at Phillip Island. There's a reason that you and I, DJ, we love to see this track on the schedule. There's a reason why it's a fixture. It's a challenge, and it's one that this Lotus 79 really brings the best out of certain drivers.
Yeah, it certainly does. You saw just how many drivers fell afoul of this circuit. So easy to spin those rear tires, so easy to go off at the Southern Loop, and it takes the absolute best in the driver in that number 68 machine, Mike Rasmus. Well, he is certainly the one that stands triumphant today. A dominant win.
Are we going to be treated to any donuts? Don't know how much fuel he's got left in that machine, if we're being completely honest. I think a lot of cars would have tried to run it as close as possible when it came to the fuel number. It's going to get a bump from behind. I think that's the indication that there's not enough fuel to celebrate a victory here today. Chris Lanini, the Graphics LC Motorsports teammate, there on the start-finish line to celebrate with his teammate. What a day for Mike Rasmus, a now 5-time winner the Lionheart Retro Series. Let's dial up our SimRace247 race results. Mike Rasmus 1.4 seconds clear of the MadWorks Motorsports train. The 68 stands tall. It's another strong display from the MadWorks Motorsports camp. O'Brien, Fowler and Taylor 2nd through 4th, while Richie Hearn backs up another impressive qualifying performance at Phillip Island inside of the top 5. And David Siwa struggled in qualifying but gained 7 positions to work his way up to 6th. Chris Reagan behind him, and the fellow Raven Lavoie Motorsports machine also making some headway. +8 for him, +8 for Tyler Groff in the 2nd of the Graphics LC Motorsports machines. David Rodriguez slides backwards very slightly to finish inside of the top 10. Ricky Hardin, one of your biggest movers today. 14 positions gained to sit in 11th spot for the number 7, while Paul Jenkins finishes in 12th position. On his return, Mark Cohn is unlucky number 13. A couple of moments for him, but an overall good day. Some strong pace shown from the Pink Panther, while Luke Daniels in 14th. Jim Herrick, race winner last time out, only 15th here today. The story of what if for Gabe Wood in Phillip Island. He's 16th with Chris Staples behind him. Dustin Wardlow +12. Cristobal Valenzuela +13 with Will Gibson also +13. So complete the top 20. Chris Lanini in 21st with Brian Hotham, 12 positions gained in the 91, 22nd. Robert Mikes, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Hugo Gallas, George Anzaldo and Craig Forsyth all 1 lap down, while the final finisher is Brett Accord in the 51 machine. Scott Holmes, 67 car, the first of our retirees, along with Lionel Callisto and a whole bunch more. Trevor Malone, Danny Roberts, Marius Valiocas, Rodrigo Munoz, Adam Frazier and Matthew Schofield. And that leads us then into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. And standing by for us in HyperX victory lane is Mike Rasmus. It took 5 races for him to get his 5th career victory in 2022. But Mike, I mean, you bided your time in the first stint of the race. What happened from your perspective in that second stint to work your way towards the front?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I did my best, and I think I just I did that extra lap on fuel at the beginning, and that might have just kind of helped me along for the rest of the race. I was just trying to keep up with them, Matt and Michael and Chris Fowler there, because they're so fast. Like I couldn't have tried passing them in the beginning at all. So I was just saving and trying to decide about tires. I was gonna take tires at the first stop, because in practice I just wear my tires right out. But it felt good in the race, and I decided not to go with tires, and turns out that was the right decision. So I'm really happy with that. I'm just happy with how the race panned out.
I love that this tire change for 2022 is really keeping you guys on your toes. I mean, was there ever a question in that second stint as well? DJ was postulating that maybe it would be worth a gamble for you to make sure you've got some grip. Talk to us about how bad the tires are after the 46 laps here today.
Yeah, they're not too bad. It's just the balance changes a lot. I think the tires wearing out, if I remember correctly, they stay a little bit cooler, so the car feels a little bit loose, and you just have to keep it under you and try not to spin any tires, any of the fronts or rears, and try to minimize, like oversteering and locking up and all that stuff. I was waiting for like a major grip loss, but it wasn't really there. It was just more of like dealing with the balance.
I mean, it's been a great start to the season for you, Mike. I mean, other than the brief blip at Watkins Glen where it didn't go your way, you finished inside the top 6 in 3 of the races so far this year. A very consistent start. And, looking back on 2021, you're in the championship mix until the very closing stages. From your perspective, what does it feel to start off 2022 like this?
Yeah, I'd like to just keep going with the consistency. It's so hard to win on the road courses against all these guys. Like, everyone is so fast and no one makes mistakes, and it's really hard to beat them at that. So it's really satisfying to get a road course win. But this whole season, I'm trying to have fun. I'm trying to play a little more risky strategies and see what happens, and just enjoy racing with all these people.
Well, I think this strategy is working for you, Mike, so keep it up. And I mean, a couple of weeks from now we go to Brands Hatch for the first time in series history. That's going to be very fascinating. You talk about wanting the road course wins. Well, that's your 3rd of the 5, so congratulations. Let's see if you can keep this momentum rolling at Brands Hatch next time out.
Thanks so much.
That's Mike Rasmussen. And then second step of the podium is not Chris Fowler, who he momentarily dragged in there. It's Michael O'Brien. And Michael, I mean, I'm sure this is a race that you would have wanted to win. I asked you this last time at Watkins Glen. I'm going to ask you again. What do you need to do to win one of these races?
Oh, I don't know. I'll get there one day. It just didn't quite come together.
I mean, it's clear that you had the pace. From your perspective, what was the call on strategy to go a little bit shorter in stint number 1? Were you just trying to look to try and get some track position and break the toe? Because those first 22 odds laps, I mean, the 4 of you at the front couldn't be split by any sort of a margin.
I knew I wasn't taking tyres, so I just wanted to spend as much time light as possible, really. Push as hard as I could and kind of hope for the best. I didn't have the ultimate pace of Matt and Chris, so I sort of had to try something a bit different.
You say that, but you were starting to build a buffer at the end of that second stint. So clearly, you say you didn't have the pace, but it was slightly different on the track, even if you were a little bit lighter on fuel. I mean, you're good on the ovals, don't get me wrong, but we always see you come to life on these road courses. It hasn't happened yet. 2 second-place finishes in 2022, but we go to Brands Hatch next time out. What are you thinking about that? A first for the Lionheart Retro Series.
Yeah, I've never driven a car this fast there, actually. That should be interesting. In my mind, it's quite a small track, so I don't know how good passing will be there, but no, I'm looking forward to that.
It's a small track, that's for sure. Michael, I love to see you drive. You just drive with a relentless aggression at times that is going to get rewarded. Don't get your head down. You'll get that win, and hopefully it's at Brands Hatch in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks, Arjuna.
Michael O'Brien was searching for the win. You could hear the slight disappointment in his voice, but it's not far away, that is for sure. Well, our first repeat pole sitter of 2022 was Chris Fowler, and if not for a small mistake of his own, he would have been fighting for first, would have been fighting for second. Chris, talk to us about that race. That first, it looked like a little bit of a procession, but it really started to intensify from there.
Yeah, well, first I got to thank Donate Life and the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation for being on board with me this year. It's really awesome to get them on the pole and on the podium. That was a crazy race. I tell you, this year in Retro, I am my own worst enemy. I just can't finish at the end of races right now. So I just got to dig deeper and finish these races. But, I mean, it's great to come away with third. The beginning of the race, we just kind of just cruising, trying to save the fuel and just keeping a pace and trying to pull away as we could. Of course, Mike was right on our butt the whole time. But, yeah, we just tried to get there, and then once we got through our pit stops, at that point we're like, everyone go for it yourself. Just the only rule is don't wreck your teammate. Otherwise, go fight and have fun. So that's what we did. We were all on our different strategies and just went with it. It was a really fun race. I keep being my own worst enemy there. I got a little frustrated there with David pass. I knew he had to pit again, and he kind of got me in turn 2. I was like, man, I'm lose track from Mike, so I tried to make another move, and I just dove way too deep. And I'm just my own worst enemy right now.
I always say rule number 1 of racing is don't hit your teammate. So I'm glad that at least you guys share that philosophy. You say you're your own worst enemy, and I think race 1 it was going so well, 23rd. Race 2, of course, the victory at New Hampshire. Watkins Glen down in 12th, 24th at Pocono. Your car says you're cursed. You've clearly got the speed. What will it take in terms of your mindset to get that the results that your performances and your pace seems to deserve? Because you say you're your own worst enemy, but that's often the best thing, right? Because you can do something to change that rather than if there's external factors coming and playing a part.
Oh, for sure. I just need to dig deeper. I kind of get, once you get to the end of the race and you're in the lead or close to the lead, I kind of get the anxiety kind of takes over you, and I kind of just get nervous. And then at that point, I get out of in the zone that I'm in, and I just kind of lose it in those last few laps. And I just got to stay in that zone. I had to spin at Homestead. I was at Pocono. I dominated that race and spun it with 3 laps to go on cold tires after 15 cautions. Speeding penalty at Watkins Glen. So I've been up front all week. I've had the pace. I just got to dig deeper, stay in the zone, and just stop making mistakes.
That's the mental side of sim racing, which is so important, and because you have less physical effects on your body, the G-forces, I always say that the mental side is so much more important. Chris, congratulations on the run. We know you've got the pace. It's looking like a promising season. Still a long way to go. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time at Brands Hatch.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
So Chris Fowler wraps up our post-race interviews, and DJ, we can finally take a breath. What a roller coaster of emotions that was, and we're still working our way through the first third of this season. We got Brands Hatch, Nashville, before we get to the second Triple Crown at the Brickyard, and then the Hungaroring to wrap up the first half of the season. But then we go to some very interesting places. A short track of Iowa, Michigan, the streets of Long Beach, our double header in Japan, the Motegi GP, and then Motegi Oval, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, another short oval in the form of the Worldwide Technology Raceway. Our penultimate race takes us to America's National Park of Speed before a return to the place where all Lionheart champions have to finish off their season, Auto Club. Next time, though, we go to, as Michael O'Brien said, a twisty track in the form of Brands Hatch, a place where passing is likely to be difficult.
Yeah, I think qualifying position is going to be absolutely key there, Arjuna, and we'll look for that fuel strategy to come into play once again as well. The best way to get past there, it's not going to be on track, it's going to be in pit lane. So you and I are going to have to be doing some mental math behind the scenes, writing down some numbers.
Yeah, and I mean, this car is raced there. This car raced in Brands Hatch in the real world, from what I remember off the top of my head. So it's not like it's an oddball pairing by any means, but I think, series first, we got a number of them this year, and right after the trip to Brands Hatch, we go to Nashville, so another series first there. But I think Brands Hatch very much looking to be a maybe surprise of the season in terms of one of our more exciting races. Before we wrap things up, though, let's reflect on the race. Again, I don't know what it is about Phillip Island, but it just seems like whenever I come here, I spend more time watching replays than watching actual on-track action. And today was a little bit different, but not as much of an exception as one would think. Again, Australia known for the creatures around its natural habitat and its rugged inhospitableness. And it looked like at the Southern Loop there was a spider or a snake or some sort of behemoth that was carrying cars off to the outside of Turn 2.
Yeah, indeed, Arjuna, and I think one of the reasons for that is that corner is so inviting, as I said, to try to take as much speed through there, and drivers just take off a little bit more than they can chew, and that's really the story of this entire circuit, and so I think the many spins that we saw today, just really the nature of it. I think when we go to Brands Hatch, you're going to see a little bit more restraint, a little bit more calm, because drivers are going to know how hard it is to pass, and they're going to be focused on not making mistakes.
Well, that's a couple of weeks from now, May 12th. Same time, same place, Thursday evenings. But before we wrap things up, I want to thank those that make all of this possible, starting with the title sponsor of the Lionheart Retro Series. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com.
Also, Butt Kicker. You're passionate about sim racing, but always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt Kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic you'll be driving faster and having even more fun than before.
Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane.
Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls, precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order building, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
And it's not just these 5, but so many more that make this all happen. To learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series or the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts on, go to lionheartracingseries.com to learn more. It's been a busy week of Lionheart action. It will quiet down for now. 2 road races are in the books. Phil Kraus winning yesterday, Mike Razmas winning today. We'll take a breather, but we'll be back next week for more. The Lionheart IndyCar Series heads to Nashville for the very first time in Lionheart history. What will that track have in store for us? The week after, it's a doubleheader of Speedway and Retro Series action as we work our way through the month of May. The DW12s head to Kentucky, the Lotus 79s head to Brands Hatch. That race and every race live on RaceBot TV in conjunction with our partners at ESTV. For now though, it is time to bid you farewell with the Thunder Down Under now in the history books. 5 chapters done, plenty more to go on the road to crowning our 2022 Lionheart Retro Series champion. On behalf of the entire team at RaceBot TV, we thank you for your company here tonight. Alongside DJ Clark, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Mike Razmas has been the bastion of consistency so far, and he finally has a victory in 2022 to add to his tally. Will he emerge victorious? There's still a long way to go, and he'll have to go to Brands Hatch next, looking to prove his might. We'll see you next time out here on RaceBot TV, but for now we bid you farewell from Phillip Island.